Have you ever looked at a photo and felt your eyes were gently guided straight to the subject, almost like the scene was handed to you on a visual roadmap? If so, that image might use the fun compositional technique called frame within a frame. Today, we're going to learn how to use that technique. But first, as always, thank you for tuning in to Shoot Happens. If you're new here, this video series helps beginner photographers like you gain better skills. You can then use these skills to learn to create stronger, cleaner images. You're also going to spend a lot less time asking, why did I ever shoot like that? In other words, you'll learn a lot, and to do so quickly, what's not to like about that? Now, if you like this series, tap the like button down below, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Trust me, your future self will appreciate it, and plus, all that helps with the whole YouTube algorithm, so we really appreciate it. So thank you in advance. With that out of the way, let's get on to it. Framing, or creating a frame within a frame, is one of the simplest, most fun ways to add depth, structure, and intention to your composition. The idea is to use elements, which can be natural or man-made, to surround your subject inside the scene. The result? Well, the image has a border that exists inside the actual photo, not added later through post-processing. And because humans, our brain loves boundaries, and when you place your subject inside of one, it instantly becomes much more visually compelling. Now, a good frame doesn't need to be symmetrical or perfect to work either. It just needs to feel intentional. A doorway, a window, tree branches, arches, fence lines, even mirrors, or even the inside of a car window can work beautifully as long as it creates separation between your subject and the rest of the scene. Now, the result is an image that feels layered rather than flat, like a story instead of a snapshot. Now, let's talk about a couple real world examples. First, imagine you're shooting a portrait at night on a city street. Instead of placing your subject in front of a blank wall, you step slightly back, shoot through a glowing bus stop shelter. In other words, you use the structure around the glass as your internal frame. The edges fall softly outside of focus. The city lights reflect just enough to add atmosphere, and your subject now sits cleanly inside the border. Now, the image has mood, structure, and intent, like night street photography with purpose, not night street photography with questionable life choices. Here's a second example. You're capturing a mountain landscape at sunrise. Rather than photographing a mountain peak by itself, you shoot through low tree branches, letting leaves and limbs cradle the summit. The sky glows behind it, the frame stays dark, and the highlights inside the scene, the mountain becomes easier to interpret. The trees, they don't steal the moment, they elevate it. In your histogram, probably won't cry either. Now, using a frame within a frame might sound easy enough, but there are a couple common mistakes that you should be aware of. Now, one common mistake beginners make is choosing a frame that competes with the subject instead of supporting it. If your frame is brighter, sharper, or more visually chaotic than the inside, congratulations, you just framed the wrong thing. Another misstep is standing too far back and hoping that the frame magically does all the work for you, when in reality, you still need to compose the subject with intention inside the space. And finally, don't forget that the frames, they're helpers, not a prison. The subject still needs breathing room, clarity, and reason to exist in the shot. When you're using frame it becomes invisible as technique and obviously as a strength. But when it's used poorly, viewers are going to notice this trick instead of the subject. So to avoid that, think of the frame as seasoning. It enhances the dish. It doesn't replace it. If you use too much of it, everyone kind of puckers up and regrets it. So the goal is to use framing to simplify, separate, or direct, not distract, bury, or confuse. And if you start seeing frames everywhere you go, friend, not to worry. That just means your photography brain has been activated. There's no cure, but the symptoms do produce better images. So we're gonna let that one fly. All right, friends, that is going to be it for this Shoot Happens episode. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and spending a few minutes of your time here with me. If you have any questions whatsoever about this technique or photography in general, leave them in the comments down below. And while you're at it, check out my other Shoot Happen videos. You're gonna find more beginner photography photography delivered with slightly less chaos and trial and error. And remember, good composition makes your subject look better. Bad composition will make your subject look accidental, and framing, my friends, helps you prevent the second thing from happening. All right, that's all I got. I'm going to be shutting off the cameras. Until next time, keep shooting, keep experimenting, and most of all, keep having fun.